Assalamu alaikum and good evening, everyone. I want to just introduce myself formally. My name is Tamim Chowdhury. I am the Executive Director for Emerge USA. What is Emerge USA? Emerge USA is an organization that is focused on the civic and political engagement of the American Muslim community. Specifically, we work with Muslim, Arab American, South Asian communities, but we obviously don't, the Muslim is a very, very broad category. So we're currently organized in Virginia and Pennsylvania and Texas, Florida, where we started, and inshallah soon going to have a chapter here in Michigan. So just to talk a little bit about our track record, we've been able, through grassroots organizing, through ultimately mobilizing the vote, we've been able to knock out Islamophobes out of office. Specifically, we were able to knock out Alan West, who was actually a congressman in Florida, actually one of the biggest Islamophobes in elected office, frankly, ever. We were able to knock him out and, more importantly, support a candidate that also, is invested in not just our community, but minority communities as a whole. Just to give you an idea of what the numbers look like, we managed to get 2,100 Muslims to come out in that district to vote. Alan West lost that race by just 200 votes. So we made the difference in that particular race. We also were able to make an impact when it came to anti-Sharia anti-foreign law bill legislations that were going on in the state of Florida. We were able to make coalitions that included the NAACP, the ADL, ACLU, and then be able to go ahead and combat some of these things, not just because it was bad for the Muslim community, but it was just bad for America as a whole. So how did we really do this? How did we actually really engage the Muslim voter, the American Muslim voter? We were able to ultimately do it through education. And one thing I want to say is education is twofold. There's education that we have to do within our community, within the American Muslim community, but then there's also education that needs to happen to the greater American public. And even though the messaging may be different for both of them, the content and what that education, what those facts are, is exactly the same. And I think that kind of speaks to some of the critical work that ISPU does. With ISPU, they're fact-driven, they're data-driven, and they've been able to produce reports that have allowed us to really go ahead and make impact in the community. Let me actually reference last year, the Islamophobia Threat to All, a report created by ISPU that actually identified very kind of restrictive legislation, kind of hate-based legislation that was happening across the country on a state level. Mind you, that's a lot of research. And they were able to put it all together, and we were able to kind of identify, okay, well, these are the elected officials that we shouldn't be talking to. These are some of the elected officials that may be open to engagement. It allowed me to better strategize our offices, our particular engagement strategy with elected officials, and then create that much more of an impact. So one thing I want to be able to say is that with all this, and there's so many pieces to this puzzle, and at the end of the day, it really kind of comes down to getting out to vote. The more that we're able to go ahead and show our presence at the polls, the more we're going to be able to have that pipeline to talk to elected officials and stop some of the bad legislation that you've seen out here in the news, or even even on your Facebook feed, or wherever you've been getting your information from. There's no-go legislation out there for no-go zone legislation out there for something frankly doesn't even exist. There was actually legislation in Florida that was recently passed that basically said that you have to basically verify your gender before you go to a public bathroom. And it's absolutely ridiculous stuff. It's ultimately infringing on the rights of Americans as a whole. And unfortunately, minority groups tend to be the brunt of it. So I think it's important to make sure that we support the work that ISPU is doing. Just because people like me at Emerge USA, we can go ahead and take that and go ahead and utilize that to go ahead and put it into action. As a grassroots organizer, I'm actually focused on doing stuff on the ground. If I have to do the research, that's going to take time away from me doing stuff on the ground. And I think holistically, we can ultimately get something done together. Finally, just want to say that I'm excited for the election 2016 study. I'm proud to support and to work with ISPU on this particular study. I think it's going to be a revelation to a lot of us in the American Muslim community about what motivates us and what doesn't. The urgency is real, it's there, and I want to leave the final thought in your head that let's actually not look at 2016 as the end goal. Let's look at 2016 as the springboard into future engagement into continued engagement and just the growing efficacy of the American Muslim voter. Thank you.